Hey, good afternoon and good morning, depending on where you are. Some of our panelists, mornings. Fellow speakers, everyone, welcome to this webinar to discuss the future of authentication for sustainable, inclusive digital nations. My name is Julian Gorman, Head of Asia Pacific for GSMA, and I get the honour of opening this webinar and moderating the panel, actually. A webinar that is the first of a series of webinars, events and reports that are going to become part of our new APAC FinTech initiative, which is about advancing the scaling of the mobile-enabled FinTech and connected commerce ecosystem, powered by the assets and value of mobile operators and its partners. So for all of you on the call, you're in at the ground roots of GSMA's journey. I invite you to become part of this connected FinTech commerce community beyond just today's webinar. Before we get started, I'd just like to highlight that this webinar is being recorded and will be made available to watch for those who couldn't join or need to refresh their mind on the insights and experience that will be shared by today's expert panel. Also, there's a chat box obviously for chat. I encourage you to participate in the chat through the webinar. And there's also a Q&A box if you'd like to enter questions for the panel to be submitted to the panel. I know the discussion of this topic could easily exceed the 1 hour we have. So if we don't get to your question, I look forward to having that further debate directly or as grow our community in the coming months. So to set the scene, the digital landscape is constantly evolving, as we know. We rely on online services for everything from banking and shopping to healthcare and education. Online authentication is a daily activity for smartphone users and even for many feature phone users across the region. One-time passwords and two-factor authentications have become part of everyday lives and conversation. But with this growing reliance comes the critical question of how do we ensure secure and trustworthy access to these services? And with the democratization of AI also reducing the cost and complexity for bad actors, how do we secure trusted authentication for the future? So for many years, SMS, one-time passwords, have been the go-to solution for online authentication. However, we know the rise of smartphones, new messaging platforms, and evolving security threats are raising doubts about the long-term sustainability of SMS one-time passwords as a sole authentication solution. So I think, what does the future hold? Well, this is where things get exciting. New and innovative authentication technologies emerging, offering more secure, convenient, and inclusive solutions. Now we're talking about biometrics, multi-factor authentication with a twist, or even passwordless authentication models, such as seamless number verify, which is part of the Open Gateway program from GSMA. And what does this have to do with sustainable, inclusive digital nations? Our physical world is built on trusted authentication, whether it's your face, your driver's license or passport, or referring a friend to do something. So a robust and trustworthy authentication system is the bedrock of a thriving digital nation. It empowers citizens to participate fully in the digital economy and access essential services. So by exploring future-proof authentication solutions, we can ensure a more sustainable and inclusive digital future for everyone. Over the next hour, we'll be diving deep into this critical topic. We'll hear from our industry experts about the latest authentication trends, explore the potential of emerging technologies, and discuss how we can build a future where everyone can participate in the digital world with confidence. So whether you're a business leader, security professional, or simply somebody who cares about the future of the internet, this webinar is certainly for you. I encourage you to participate with a Q&A and share your thoughts and questions, because this has been a significant topic for GSMA. And this webinar comes in just post the first anniversary of GSMA's Open Gateway program, which is now available across 48 operator groups representing more than 240 network operations, which cover about 2/3 of the world's connections, have signed the MOU, the Open Gateway project. And we're going to be referring to this a little bit more during the course of the webinar so you'll understand more. But effectively, Open Gateway program is an initiative to help connect the world through a single common open standard API to the mobile networks around the world, and realizing or making available the assets and information within the network so that they can be used for authentication and other things. So This is a very important webinar for GSMA. And with that, I'd also like to introduce you to our incredible panel, really, of wise and experienced industry experts who have been willing to join me here today. First up, Stefan Kostic, CEO of IPification, provider of secure, seamless, and safe mobile identity to the digital universe. Next, I have Dr. Ong Chok Hui, CEO of Bridge Alliance, a leading alliance of mobile network operators stretching over 34 countries and approaching 1 billion users now. Followed by Dario Betti, CEO of Mobile Ecosystem Forum, a global trade body that acts as an impartial and authoritative champion for addressing issues affecting the broadening mobile ecosystem. Digital authentication in part of that. Kedar Gupta joined us from South Africa. Oh, sorry, Dubai. I knew this other day. Chief Mobility Officer of Baobab, formerly MTN Global Connect, which is a next generation service as a company connecting Africa and the world now with digital solutions. And finally, I've got Pushpendra Singh, old friend and head of business messaging for Meta, who I think we can all agree we know who they are. And so with that, I'd like to welcome panel. Thank you very much for joining us. And maybe to help set the scene, I'll give the opportunity for you guys to really expose how you see this authentication industry moving forward. Is maybe give a bit of a outline of how have online authentication needs changed in recent years and what challenges you're seeing service providers facing. Maybe I'll actually push as a big user of authentication to lead off with that.
Yeah, thanks everyone. And I think thanks for inviting me, first of all. Authentication, I think, continues to be an important part of the ecosystem for us because I think it provides us access to users across the planet, which in a pretty easy form, because otherwise if you have to do paper-based authentication and all this stuff, that will probably take like numerous efforts and stuff. So it's been there. All our apps need an authentication before you can start using that, because we believe in like exactly knowing who's using the apps and stuff. The industry has actually seen a lot over the last 2 to 3 years, right? Like if you go across how folks authenticate and stuff, there are new technologies which are coming in, but I think SMS still has that niche place because I think it's so easy to authenticate users through it. It's easier for users. They've used SMS technology for ages and stuff. But over the last 3-4 years, like what we are largely seeing is there's a lot happening onto this. I think the biggest starting point is you can't predict the price of SMS nowadays. You wake up and it goes from X cents to Y cents. And then you're like, hey, is this the channel I really want to use? So I think that's one. Second thing which we're seeing is a lot of frauds or scams happening on this. We don't know where they're happening, but they're happening across the globe, which also makes companies like us invest like a lot in like fraud management tools and stuff. So I think that's the second part, I think, which is really building up. Third is due to like increase in prices and stuff, we are seeing new technologies advent. And I think Carrier API, the initiative by GSMA, also probably helps to like take care of all these issues which the industry is facing and stuff. And I think one important thing which I'm not able to still get hang around is like SMS is a non-digital product giving access to digital services. So, like this is the time where, I think we are looking at a word like, oh, SMS is great, it's going to be seamless, OTP and all that stuff. But I think as we move on, there has to be a word which is as digital to authenticate digital apps as we move on. So I think, again, I'm not saying that SMS is going to stay because it's seamless and stuff, but I think the things industry needs to do to ensure that it stays as a preferred choice for operators like us, companies, so that we can continue. But I think the fallacies of like price, unpredictability, scam, and all those things are like pushing us back to like start evaluating more and more in different technologies to be move on. But as mentioned, like Meta as a company, you're more than willing always to work with industry to figure out new solutions which are right for consumers, which are right for companies, and right for us as well. So I think a partnership which is across the ecosystem, which benefits everyone.
Thanks, Push. I think bringing them all together and the need for that, I suppose. Maybe I'll ask the next question then to Stefan. You sit between mobile operators and people like Push trying to help with their authentication needs. What do you see as concerns regarding traditional authentication methods such as SMS, OTPs, and the future?
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Julian. And first of all, thanks everyone. Really pleasure to be on this panel. As Push was saying, I mean, we are talking about 5G, 6G now, and then in regards to authentication, we are still, discussing about SMS, which been out there for 20 plus years or so. I don't remember when the first SMS was sent exactly, but one of the main things that what we are seeing, I mean, obviously, I mean, price is definitely one of them, and the commercial side, but the security is becoming more and more important as we all move to, digital natives and digital nations overall. And that's where I think SMS has a lot of hurdles, right? So some of the things Push mentioned, which are again frauds related more on the commercial side and related to AIT, artificially inflated frauds, and traffic, which is causing a lot of costs on the enterprise side. But what we are seeing from a lot of clients is really deep security issues connected with SMS, and some of the most common one are related to phishing in the first place, which is affecting nowadays banking and fintech, and it's something that obviously SMS cannot cope with. And the second one is SIM swap. So what we've discussed, I mean, SMS is great for user adoption. It was available, across all the networks from the get-go and etc. But nowadays, as I said, there's a lot of security issues which I think the carrier APIs and open gateway initiatives are solving. So yeah, that's what we are seeing as one of the main thing that is going to drive this change.
Okay, so SMS is not dead, but it has its challenges to address, which is probably a good way for me to lead in then to ask Chokwi, as an organization who's not been significantly involved in the past, say with the SMS A2P market, but getting into the authentication market with Open Gateway. How do you see emerging technologies such as Open Gateway as holding the promise for secure authentication online?
Right. Thanks, Julian. For Bridge, as you know, we have 34 member operators across Asia, Middle East, and Africa. And Open Gateway definitely is one of these key initiatives that Bridge member operators are coming together to look at how we can leverage on Open Gateway, and more importantly, to look at the problem to be solved, right? So the approach that we have is really focusing on the use case, a very customer-centric approach to look at for authentication exactly in different use cases or even different vertical use cases, what is needed. So SMS, while Bridge in the past may not be as heavily involved. In fact, 4 years back when we launched our CPaaS, we start to get into that, right? Using SMS API as a way of authentication and beyond for our enterprise customers across the market. And now with Telco APIs, Open Gateway initiative, it is an area that is very interesting because our member operators like Singtel in Singapore have actually launched a service called Sync Verify that helps to use Telco API as a form of authentication. Telkomsel in Indonesia has also worked with other telcos in Indonesia to make sure that that happens. And for that to happen, of course, we all know that SMS is what it is today because it's very ubiquitous, right? Everybody, all telco, you don't have to talk to anyone for interconnection, it's all done, right? So Telco API is still at its nascent stage. So we have to make sure that everybody works together to make sure that we have the coverage for every market that the customers are in. And the other point that we focus a lot about using Telco API as authentication is co-creation with customer and also technology partner. So take, for example, one of these vertical technology partners, VKey, who is a provider of security solution for fintech companies in this part of the world. We work with them to see how Telco API and SMS, all that can be a form of ingredient to add to their whole security solution. So it will not be a single technology or single solution, right? It's really looking at exactly what customer wants, the customer journey, so that it's frictionless, and to use the best fit in terms of solution, whether SMS or Telco API and beyond, to make sure that we deliver what the customer wants.
Okay, great comments. Well, sort of says that, so the future is not just SMS. There's going to be a basket of activity. I suppose we do get a bit of a chicken and egg problem, is how do you get people to adopt in nascent stage when something like SMS is so universal? So maybe Dario, as a fellow trade organization who tries to corral and herd everybody into an advance new topics or new technologies, how do you see your role, or how do we help make newer technologies also inclusive and universally available, such as SMS?
Well, sometimes we as an industry association, we're a place to think. So we bring some of the debate and some of the insight from different places. And thanks, Julian, for mentioning inclusion, which is part of what we really try to do a lot. To make a service universal, such as use SMS is, but authentication is a real service. SMS is just technology in the end. We need to look at what the consumers can do. 10% of our consumers are there have got some physical issues. Myself, I'm wearing glasses, but many others could be in there. How do we make sure that the service is really part of that digital inclusion that allows, if we are in fintech, a universal service like mobile banking or other, to really be used by everybody else? We think that the answer is, we just heard it from Anju recently as well, but isn't it the fact that we need to provide multiple services that might fit different situations as well? And one of them is how much enterprise are happy to trade off between security and universality and services. But there's always a trade-off. I would say when we talk about some of the APIs, some of the open gateway, you might have a great reach without having to forgo that security that is inbuilt in the service as well. But whether you're talking about the universality of SMS, you can still reach that because it's linked to what devices you're using, what network you're having as well. And let's face it, in some countries, both things are very different. You might have still a reliance on 2G networks, even. You might have a reliance on non-smartphone phones. But apps and biometrics and other great solutions could be available there. Equally, there's always a pocket of somewhere of some of the people that might not be able to use those services in its full usage as anyway. So the answer is a bit complicated. There might not be one single solution that works for everywhere and for everybody. But we are sit on a lot of technology and a lot of potential to adjust the offers to each one customer. And that orchestrations of different customer experience is really what we should go towards. So if you're on fintech, embrace inclusivity and embrace the different technology which is available for you to provide authentication.
Okay, thanks, Dario. I mean, that's a sort of great lead in for me to get my question to the last panel member in this first round is Keda. I mean, as an organization bringing authentication, well, have a legacy of bringing authentication to Africa, a very diverse landscape, and now more to the world. I mean, how do you see that challenge, based on the comments we've had before about, SMS as universal, but how do we keep future technologies or make sure future technologies are inclusive? How do you see it playing a role for you as Baobab?
Thanks so much, Julian. Look, at Baobab and at MTN at large, our mission is to bring benefits of a digital connected life to Africa. Now, when you say benefits of a digital connected life, for example, you start with financial inclusion. You bring in the non-banked into the banked. And, in Africa, you're a mobile-first economy. So that one mobile phone is your computer, your entertainment, your banking facility, everything. And then to Push's point, if you're looking at a native digital tool to authenticate, taking into cognizance what is available today, I think the 3 or 4 things that we need to do as an industry, we need to ensure that we harmonize that digital capability across the ecosystem. So, you need to make it easy for developers to understand, interpret, and embed that digital code for authentication. Because to, again, another panel member's point, Stefan, there is phishing, there is SIM cloning. So SMS will have its own native headwind around how secure is it when it comes to financial transactions or digital inclusion. What we can do is to bring in these new tools, but we need to bring them at scale. We need to make them easy. And then when I say easy, I think Kamara and the open gateway that you spoke, Julian, is the right approach, where you kind of, bring all the operators in. You make a code that is developer friendly, you document it, and you make it accessible, rather than creating, typically digital transformation is a journey, right? And the journey, for those who've taken, they all know that it's a tough journey. It's not like one solution fits all. You have to be at it continuously, continue to work on making it easy. And uh, while the English part of it is fairly comfortable, that make it easy, but the people who work behind the scenes, making it easy means a lot of effort that goes behind the scene. So in my view, scale, make it easy, document, and make it interoperable, harmonize these new APIs that will allow you to further bulletproof SMS. So you could potentially safeguard against the fallacies, as Push mentioned, of SMS in terms of fraud. And then you use a digital tool to check whether you are sending that OTP to the right handset, and then you bulletproof the whole process. That's my headspace for this moment.
Good. I mean, that's helpful that you actually mentioned Kamara there, because actually we're getting a number of questions on the Q&A about Kamara. So maybe I'll give you a follow-up question, Kira, about the future of SMS. You mentioned about SMS being part of maybe a portfolio of authentication. And the questions that have come up on the Q&A are about, well, what about the availability of Kamara APIs on Wi-Fi and and the availability generally, so how do we move to this space? Could you provide a few comments perhaps on how you see the Kamara and SMS evolving together?
So look, thanks again, Julian. So look, I think, when it comes to ubiquity, you can't take SMS away. It's the easiest piece. It's available on feature phones. It's available on smartphones. It's something that has existed with us for 34 years now, right from the first SMS in 1990, saying Merry Christmas to where we are today, right? And then it's gone through a whole bunch of use cases. So SMS will stay, okay? Now, when it comes to the new age thing, you and me as an industry should be open and amenable to the advancements we've made in technology. And through those advancements, we need to further reinforce authentication as being a native need for the digital world. When I say this, there are some bottlenecks. How will it work on Wi-Fi's? Is it secure to open the core to an external world? Could we potentially have another way of authentication using applets on the SIM card, so on and so forth? So there are multiple options available to the industry. The industry is still maturing. Typically for those who are already a part of the Kamara API Alliance, when we have gone and tried to make a pitch to the likes of Meta or to the large banks, the counter question is always, but you are one operator who offers us. We don't have the other operators in country giving us that same API. So first things first, before we focus on the smaller tidbits, Wi-Fi, how many people really use open Wi-Fi to do a financial transaction? I mean, is that really a problem? Would you be comfortable, as fellow panelists or our fellow attendees, would you be comfortable using an open Wi-Fi to transact through your bank? You would typically do that in the comfort of your house. And so long as that API works and ensures that your transaction is more secure, you avoid yourself the pain, the enterprise that serves you, benefit. And like I said, we can always look at it from a commercial perspective, where Push said that there's a whole lot of fraud and volatility in pricing. And some of these things are native to the industry. I don't see them as a problem. For those who are sitting on top of these decisions and are business owners, they need to solve this. This is within their remit. They can make it affordable. They can make it inclusive to the customers they serve. And at least at Baobab, we truly believe in making it affordable, making it inclusive to the customers, and keeping it relevant.
Yeah, I noticed, Stefan, you put your hand up. You're going to make a comment here because I was going to pop the question.
Sure, no worries. I just want to add on to Kedar and to the question in specific on the Wi-Fi. It's some of the common things and questions we are discussing with the clients. So in regards to Wi-Fi availability for number verification and carrier API, it's fully available for native application. So I think this is very important to be mentioned. So for native applications, both Android, iOS, Huawei, they are fully supported even on Wi-Fi. So the only requirements there is to have a mobile data active, basically in the background on the setting side. So there's only one small piece of the customers that are yet to be covered, which are the ones who are using mobile web and they are on mobile data. But there are some movements in this regard. So and some working bodies that are taking care of this. So I do hope that in I don't know if it's going to be this year, but most probably in a very near future, even this mobile web piece of customers, which is at least in our perspective, maybe 5 to 10% of the overall customer base for most of the enterprises, they will be covered with camera capabilities as well.
Okay, well, that opens up my next question then. There's no doubt universal availability of APIs and being able, be able to match SMS's footprint is a desire. But as we go through the next couple of years, and different countries maybe prioritize different APIs, Push, as representative of somebody who'd like to have global universal availability, are you seeing that the innovations, or how do you prioritize what innovations we need in authentication to serve your needs, or what are you seeing in the market around prioritization of which authentication technology first?
So I think, Julian, that's a good question. Like, does SMS solve our current needs for authentication at scale? The answer is yes, it does. To adopt to a new technology, I think there's a lot of investment which needs to come in, right? Because I think we have to work on our apps, how people authenticate and all that stuff, right? So I think which requires a lot of investment. So I think, first of all, I think for us to start using these technologies at scale, what we need is there are more than 800 operators. Are all of them using it? Because we won't be in a situation where we have a different screen for login in one country and that option is not there on the other, right? So I think, first of all, the scale has to be good enough. That's one. Second, these technologies will require education. As you get onto say something with the carrier API, like people are still used to putting OTPs in, and if something happens on their phone, they'll be like, hey, someone hacked my phone. All those things will come into place. So I think with the new technology, all these things also come into place. The third most important thing is for us to invest in a new technology, we need to have a long-term pricing predictability. That, hey, this is what the price is for the next 5 years. Otherwise, we know that we already are in there, pricing keeps on changing. Why should we change down to something which will be very similar? So I think from safety, security perspective, I think it's the right thing to do. We are also live with carrier API in few countries currently. The results are good, but for us to paddle down and say, hey, we want to scale globally, I think we need reach across. We need uniform solutions so that we don't have to go and integrate with 300 operators, because that's again an investment and cost. And the most important thing is the price. Is do we have a price, first of all, which is lower than SMS, because that's how we will adopt to it, because SMS largely solves these problems today. So the price has to be lower. The pricing has to be for 5 to 10 years. And that way, then we know that, hey, this is the place to get in. And then we go from there. My understanding, reading about Camara and more on carrier API, it's more than number verify. Number verify is one of the things, right? As an industry, as an ecosystem, we can work together. And there's a lot more to do there. There are win-win partnerships which can be done on both the sides, which can't be done on SMS today, because SMS is the one-way traffic. I authenticate and then I don't have a relationship with that, right? But I think carrier API opens up a plethora of partnership opportunities. But again, I think before I move on, to summarize, price lower than SMS to start with, long-term deals, 5 to 10 years, so that infrastructure can be built around it, and across the planet, everyone should know how to use it, so that education, all those things become easier for us.
Okay. And it's probably a good time to touch on maybe some of the regulatory issues that we are operating in. A number of countries already suggesting that maybe SMS is not secure enough for certain industries, while other markets are imposing regulation requiring domestic SMSs or things to be used for certain types of industries. Maybe Dario, you're looking across the world, and you also play in this, industry space, advocating for regulation and policy to help sustain the industry, along with GSMA. How do you see the role of regulation impacting, maybe constraining, or helping authentication innovation?
I would say it's not an easy job to be a regulator nowadays. First of all, there's so much complexity, I would say, out there. And part of that controversy might be but the fact that there is a different approaches in some countries stopping SMS services and some countries defending it. Is part because different priorities at play. The first, I would say, is consumer protections, and we count the value of mobile fraud to consumers at about 47 billion a year, and that's a huge figure. And that is a figure that needs to be challenged somehow. So we do understand where some of the social engineering issues that SMS has been exposed to are really concerning, and that some of the countries are acting that way. But equally, some other countries are looking at other priorities, whether state security is one of them or economic impact. We're talking of market authentications with SMS and others, but could potentially be about 15 billion last year, $15 billion. It's sizable, and it might mean something to some countries or some of the national champions that some of the national operators might want to cover. And we should say lawful intercept, you mentioned it before. There are other state security issues that you might want to make sure that you have direct control of a national solutions rather than international one. Now, some of the good news, because we've been talking about APIs, is that the open gateways, it's a good way to show some and to educate some of regulators that you don't have to make a choice between one and the other, because it is compatible with those things as well. But back to the hard role of regulators, things, including the technology, including the use cases, are changing so quickly that sometimes it's a very challenge for a regulator to see between the different options. Good luck to all of them if they're regulating, but we as associations will very well welcome discussions and educations with the different parts of the stakeholders in the industry about those.
Okay. Well, then, if I speak to Chokri, as an alliance of mobile operators also operating in this space, I suppose, there's been some chat about whether SMS will be the enduring solution or now as part of our portfolio, and the relationship of trust and sustainability. So I suppose, as a head of an alliance of mobile operators and an organization looking to become a big part of authentication with Kamara APIs and other things, what do you see, the role as mobile operators individually or as a group to build trust and confidence in authentication services as necessary for sustainability of this industry?
Right. I think that is trust is definitely a key area that the telcos, the MNOs can actually play a part, right? So in many of our markets, our member operators are working very closely with the regulators, especially in the anti-fraud area, right? And not only regulator, but also the whole ecosystem of banks and fintechs to also look at ways that we can work together to make sure that the solution that we provide, whether SMS, telco APIs, and beyond, will actually have the right kind of solution to protect the consumer. So that is very important. And in some market, the regulators are also starting to look at the responsibility of MNOs, right? In this whole phishing or scam that is harming the consumers, whose liability it is, should MNOs take up part of it? So that is a complex discussion because there's only so much control that each of the operator has, right? But together with technology partners and customers, that's where we should come together to see how we stop all the loopholes and regain trust and give a service to consumers where they can use without worrying about all these bad actors. And really, when I wanted to go back to the point that Push is talking about in terms of coverage, right? Which is very important because that's something that also Bridge is working with our member operators to make sure that not only our member operators, but also other operators within their market are working together to harmonize the solution offering so that customers can have a single point of integration, a single harmonized offerings across the market to make it much easier for us to move forward with the new way of authentication. And when we look at the authentication as not only authentication, but other opportunities so that we can co-create with customers like Meta, right? So Push is talking about the telco API is beyond just number verification, which is very true. That's why in our work group, we talk about different kind of use cases. And by working with customers, then we understand where are the opportunity. And when you look at the whole of business, that makes sense for operators to move a lot faster commercially. If not, they will just be looking at just a comparison of replacement. And if you're looking at replacement, why would I price just the API lower than A2P, right? So there's always this struggle commercially. So to break this equation and to reduce that friction, that conversation has to be a lot more encompassing and not just very single pointedly and say just a replacement service. So that mindset, that movement, and that collaboration has to happen, right?
Okay, fantastic. And I'm actually going to just thank the audience at the moment. There's a bunch of questions coming in, and panelists, if you've got time while you're not speaking, feel free to answer them. But I will get to raise some of them for discussion as we can go. And one of them just brings for Chokwi, just a question there about in arranging federation of your partner operators, and what are the priorities and what role does Bridge Alliance playing in making sure you have universal availability across your alliance and of which APIs prioritize?
Yeah, right. So in fact, we are working on a federation of APIs across our footprint, so as to really reduce the friction of customers accessing and consuming all these telco APIs. So yes, we're coming up with a federation layer. In fact, we have already successfully conducted a POC that was actually showcased at MWC Barcelona, right, under GSMA Pavilion, where we showcase how our member operators, AIS, Singtel, right, Telkomsel, Maxis, and Hong Kong Tel, can successfully federate across the market. So that's something that we're pushing very hard. And as we work on that federation layer, we are bringing our customer on the journey, right? So like what I mentioned, we cannot be just doing a replacement service, and we cannot be just developing something and thinking that customer will pay 3 times the price of SMS, right? Push already tell us what is his expectation. And to break the equation commercially is very important because technically, actually everything can be solved. And I think GSMA is doing a great job in Project Camera and Open Gateway, right, to harmonize and standardize. So it is now within Bridge Alliance and our member operators and beyond, the whole ecosystem, our job to make sure commercially it works. And the speed before the customers look at it and say, forget it, I have replacement technology, right? So urgency is of paramount importance.
Oh, thanks for those comments, Chokwi, and we certainly enjoy and welcome your participation in the project. And actually, the questions we have coming from the audience indicate that actually the audience does have a bit of an understanding of what's going on with Camara, which is maybe leading my next question then is, now we have many, people have become familiar, I suppose, with SMS OTPs and using SMS. But as we move to all these other authentication technologies, question sort of comes as, what role do the mobile operators, authentication service providers, or even the enterprise end users, what are we going to have to do to maybe educate consumers and users of these new authentication methods? And there's some of them like seamless number verified, maybe they don't even know happens, it's all done in the background. But there's probably approvals and understanding of what's happening that will be necessary. I suppose the question to the panel is, what do you see the role of associations or users or authentication providers in this? education of consumers of these new authentication options. Mario, yes.
Yeah, jump in. Yes, thanks. Thanks, Julian. I think we got a great opportunity here. And I think sometimes I look at what we have versus where we could be. Now, for the last 10 years at the Mobile Ecosystem Forum, we check the consumer trust. How are people responding to our services? And it's not all good news. If you look at the trust on security of something as important as mobile banking, that's the best. That's the highest level we got in terms of people telling us globally. But unfortunately, it's only 40% that thinks that it's secure or very secure. There's a 60% out there that don't get this sense. And the question themselves, I have about, again, 38 to 42% of people have received an SMS, which was probably a fake SMS, a phishing, as Stefan was mentioning before. So there are some challenges out there. We need to see and educate the market that something better is happening. The challenges itself is, at the same time, people have learned that little SMS so far, it's a step, something else that they can do, and they trust that there's a level of the lack of the transparency we see. Unfortunately, that's also the reasons of so much social engineering happening at the same time. So there is plenty happening in the background to say that we need to educate and do a better job at it, but also expose how some things are coming to help and how this is getting a really more secure environment overall. So I think it's an opportunity as well as a threat, in other words, Julian. I really get excited about the fact that we can tell people that we're now doing something better for them. If I may, I'll also try it very fast to squeeze in the other part of the questions that you have. It was probably not directed to me, but how can we as an industry and the mobile operator and the CPaaS industry, I would say, changes? I say that some of the changes is already happening. I believe a lot of our positions, we started selling SMS because it simply was there and it became a solution. Now we are getting closer to the enterprise needs by realizing that we need to listen to them, not just providing a technology, but really providing a wider set of solutions, of which 1 or 2 or 3 technologies might all be in there. But we're starting to listen more. And I think that's a great starting point. If I could say, the long-term longevity of this industry will be based on that. Listening to consumers, the enterprises are there, but make sure we educate the end consumers, the people out there, on the value and the additional security that we're bringing to this industry.
Okay. Well, so Stefan, you're sitting in the middle of the providers or the anchors and the people who are using it. I mean, do you have an influence in maybe educating?
Yeah. I mean, my view, actually, our view on education, I mean, it's good to be there. I mean, we've seen the banks, etc., sending the messages, emails to their customers, be careful, be vigilant, etc. But the frauds are still growing up, right? Like, so the thing is, like, we need to have, I mean, the enterprises need to have the solution to protect, I mean, even customers from themselves, how we would like to say, because in many cases, I mean, even myself considering myself, like kind of like an expert in the security in the mobile space, but you kind of almost fall victim to some of the things, right? Like that are becoming so professional, in regards to phishing, the way the email is structured, the way the bank is approaching you on Viber, on WhatsApp, etc. So I think education is great, but definitely we need to do something beforehand, and that's where this type of technology comes into play. And if I may, I just want to follow up on Chokwi comments. I think it's very important to combine the enterprise wishes on the commercial side and what the telcos are expecting. As you said, we are sitting in the middle, so we are feeling all the pain on both sides, getting along. But I think, and what Push mentioned, there's really much more in the game here, and I like to say, I'm calling it as a big dream, but it's really coming to reality now. Is that carrier API and authentication is just like a highway, like a road where the enterprises are coming in. But then the telcos are actually building a lot of these exclusive shops on the road, talking about the SIM swap, the credit scoring, the KYC, the mobile advertisement piece, which I think can add much bigger value, to the enterprises like Meta and everybody else, to help them not only on the entrance and on the authentication piece where the users are coming from, but actually across different points of the overall business operations. And that's where I think it's a much bigger opportunity for the carrier in regards to capturing, let's say, much bigger piece of the pie, and not only looking at just replacing an SMS OTP revenues with just some other technology. And then, it's a right question: what's the motivation for the carriers at the end, right? Like, so we need them to understand actually, and to see, there's much bigger business at stake here.
Okay, well, time's ticking on, and then the audience is getting wound up, submitting lots of questions. So we're going to pick a couple out. There was some mention before about commercial stability. Let's say I'll summarize it that somebody's made the point that I think mobile operators price strategies maybe are impacting or killing the SMS or distorting some of this authentication market. Is there thoughts from, I mean, Push, you already made some comments about the need for stability. Keda, maybe from your position, are you seeing across regions, seeing across operators, markets, are we distorting the authentication landscape, perhaps with uncertainty or unpredictability, let's say, of commercial terms?
So Julian, yes, look, I think, think of it as split the MNO world into the large MNO groups and then the smaller, MNOs. Think of it as the brands that we typically talk in terms of the Vodafones, the AT&Ts, the Airtels, the MTNs. We don't have this thing of, raising rates beyond a certain point, and, we would want to give stability. But when you look at, models where commitments are asked, it's unreasonable. This is in my books, rogue behavior to go and charge 20 cents for an SMS. And then that 20 cent, while is the ask from that rogue element, there is also a bunch of aggregators who go and commit that kind of money. So when you go and say, look, I'm going to commit $20 million for the next 12 months, you're not left with any choice but to charge $1 a message, because you're doing that commitment for an operator who has a subscriber base of 1 million odd, right? So that math and then that value chain needs to be kind of brought to the table and broken. For sure, there is no space for these, again, in my books, inverted commas, Julian, dumb commitments, because these dumb commitments then start to translate to the wider industry, right? So that's it is an issue, and then let the truth be told, that commerce is behind all the alternate channels that are being spoken of. If you could have streamlined that commerce and kept it reasonable, stable, people would just use SMS to authenticate. It works on all handheld devices. And for any other channel to come in, it's going to take time, if nothing else.
Sounds like a challenge for the industry, and something that Dario and myself, our organizations, can maybe prioritize on helping industry understand the distortion in the landscape. I suppose we're getting close to the end of our time, but no webinar now would be worth its salt if we didn't mention AI somewhere. So if I was to ask the question is what is the role of AI in authentication? And there's been a lot of discussion in the public and the media by regulators of scams and frauds on the rise. And probably everyone with smartphones dabbled with AI at some point in their pocket now. So open the panel for a conversation on what role is AI going to play in authentication now and in the future. Kedar, you've got your hand up first.
The reason I put my hand up first is this is a very close topic to my heart. And, look, and this is exactly how I put it on LinkedIn as well. The telco sits on rich alternate data sets. Using intelligence, machine learning, can these data sets be amalgamated with single APIs that can make the digital journey convenient? I mean, that the answer to that, Julian, is yes. Whether it's the OpenAI gateway, if you can bring in some artificial intelligence, start talking of the edge, this just makes life of people like you and me convenient. And if we as an industry start to look at things like customer delight, user experience enhancements there, I think the bottom of the elements in terms of revenue margin, etc., will all fall in place. What we need is a bunch of happy customers, both on the enterprise and on the retail side. You make that marriage happen, and everything else falls in place.
Okay, that sounds promising and optimistic. Some would say that authentication AI might not be words you should be using in the same sentence. If there's a fear in the media of Gen AI and deep fakes and things, is there risk as much as opportunity? Is there risk of AI and authentication? Stefan, I know you're looking to.
Yeah, I just wanted. Yeah, I don't know if I'm trying to find raise hand, but there's no more button. I guess you blocked it for me. That's okay. I mean, on our how we are seeing the AI, it's more from a threat perspective, right? Like so that's where I think again we are seeing this as a great opportunity for the carriers, because AI, in our opinion, nowadays is mostly connected to the biometric side of things. And especially a lot of advancement on the image recognitioning, on the, as you said, deep fakes. I've recently seen a video where they are able to capture the fingerprints, from your regular photo, and they are able to use this to unlock, whatever the fingerprint protections you have, whether it's a banking, etc. So that's where I think it's increasing the need for having other factors aside from the biometric ones, because biometrics, obviously with the advance of AI technology and everything, can be compromised. We've seen this. I mean, I've experienced my banks had to cancel the voice recognition for confirming some of the high transactions because of the advance in the AI. We've seen that they are able to replicate, Cristiano Ronaldo's voice or whatever voice, so they can easily replicate yours if they find you online. So I think that's where the other factors which telecoms can provide are definitely going to become more relevant in the future of AI. So that's at least our stance.
Okay, that's a good, promising, I'd say, for the industry. Another tool to help the industry move forward. We do have a lot of questions, and from the audience, some of them are specific to people on the panel. There's no way we can get to all these questions. So what I'll promise to you, people in the audience, is we will submit the questions to the panel and post them after the event, which you'll be able to look into them. But maybe if we just give one or two more, there's a question around the security of one authentication mechanism versus the others. Maybe we'll have just to help close, we can have a quick chat about the different authentications, and whether it's a matter of less secure or more secure, or whether it's a matter of combining authentication mechanisms to make a more secure authentication landscape. Jokui, as somebody, bridge heading down with a Camara, I mean, in Southeast Asia, I think there's some like 4 or 5 APIs, which I would say directly contribute to fintech risk and fraud. Sync Verify has already got one, and I think they said 2 or 3 more down the pipe. How do you see them working together, and whether it's a individual or as a bundle to create security?
Yeah. So definitely we are seeing that there are advantages in actually combining various kind of APIs for different use cases to increase the security. So for example, use cases in Indonesia, Telkomsel, right? They have already deployed like device location APIs. And that is a very useful API to combine with other APIs to make sure that you triangulate and you actually have information about our users, to make sure that the authentication, the location information actually adds on to another level, another layer of security, right? So combining different APIs, looking at what is the use case, or even different kind of transaction that might require different level of authentication. So that can add on. And with telcos assets around what we know about our user, right? The eKYC portion, that could also help in terms of giving more assets and informations to help our customers in making it even more secure. So definitely a bundled solution, or I would say a deep dive into exactly what kind of security is needed, and then leveraging on what we have, right, to combine together and make it a lot more secure.
I think that's probably a good context for the comments that we've had about need to work together. So maybe as a closing comment, I'll ask Push your comments on the need to work together as an ecosystem across operators, authentication, and users. You know, who takes the lead? How do we need to come together?
I think it's a very valid and an important question. I think the ecosystem has to work together for any technology to scale to a meaningful essence, right? Like associations like I think Bridge, MEF, GSMA, I think are a good bridge between us instead of talking to like hundreds of operators and stuff. So, and we as a company has always believed, right? Like is we want to work with the companies who are the end providers of it so that, you know, we have a meaningful scale. And again, it's just about like giving customers a indelible experience, I would say. So it can be through any ways of authentication. It needs to be safer for the end user. It needs to be safer for them anywhere on the planet. And for companies like us, it has to be cost efficient at scale. Like it's just not about authenticating one user. We're looking at authenticating like billions of users across the planet and stuff. And then I think the second thing the industry really needs to, I think, get along and work together is the fraud, the AID part of it, right? I think that's becoming bigger and bigger, and I think that's like really taking a lot of trust off the industry as such. So I think that's a place, you know, where I think bigger operators, as Kedar mentioned, right? Like we work very closely with them on like as soon as we see a fraud on their network or they see it, they just inform us. You know, so I think there has to be a process and ways that, you know, that part doesn't exist. Are there bad actors in the marketplace? There are. Like how as an industry, telco operators and we can work together to eliminate that to a larger extent. Can the problem be fully solved? The answer is no. But I think if we can get up to that 99% sort of confidence and then start building up on these new technologies and stuff as we move on, because changing overnight also doesn't help. So I think it has to be a close movement and everyone has to make a value out of it. Like customer needs to see value. I'm sure telco operator doesn't want to lose money out of it, and we don't want to pay a lot of money as well. So I think it has to be a right, fine balance across all the three parts of the ecosystem for anything to succeed at scale.
Fantastic comments, I think, to close. But I will let, if there are any other panelists who would like to make a final closing comment, come to the end of our hour. I know we could probably talk about this for days or hours, certainly hours. So any closing comment? Anyone we should make a closing comment before I'll just wrap up? Oh, good. Well, I'm sure there's a list of questions in our Q&A question box, which we're going to be circulating to the panel, and we will be posting online with the recording of this webinar. With that, I would like to thank our panelists for sharing their time and the insights and expertise. And I think it's been a fantastic panel, and thank you very much for joining us. For those in the audience, as I said, this is the first webinar of our new FinTech community. And we look forward to seeing you more and participating more. Clearly from the questions, there's a lot of people with some deep interest in this area. And we look forward to you joining us along with our panelists on our collective journey to a strong and sustainable digital nations, powered by people on the panel and you in the audience. And I think just final thank you for joining us, and thank you to the panelists. Thank you today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Julian.
Thanks, everyone.
Great
Thanks a lot,
weekend,
guys.
guys.
Bye.
Cheers.